what's up? My name is Paige. I am the creator behind Strings to Stitches. This is my puppy Ozzy. Turn around, Oz. And today I will be crocheting a two-tone summer fun top, one of my patterns I sell on Etsy, so let's get right into it. So here is a preview of the top in a size small. If you can see, there is a tie in the front, also a corset style back with another tie. So this is what the finished piece will look like, but today we're making it an extra large, and I'll show you on my body at the end. So for tools, you will need a 4.5 millimeter hook. This is a clover one. I think I bought it from Michael's or Joann's. A pair of scissors. Also got these from Joann's. And then this was just some yarn I had in my stash. This is a weight 5. However, it is on the thin side of a weight 5. Typically, I recommend a weight 4, but this is what I have, so this is what I want to use today. Well, I found a few other brands that I have on hand just for recommendations. This is Impeccable. It's from Michael's. It's great yarn, and they have a ton of color options. I love this yarn. You can find it at Hobby Lobby, and actually, all these brands have a ton of color options. I think that's why I like them. And then Big Twist is from Joann's, but you can't go wrong with any of them. So I went ahead and already made one side of the top. This is my two-tone top. You make it in sections. So first we're gonna do the cup, then we start working on the bottom piece, then the side panel, then we go around it with the border and add the strap. So for the other top, I'm going to do an orange body with a yellow border. Here's a picture from my pattern, but you can also make this in one color and it still looks pretty cool if you ask me. Okay, so first we're gonna start with the bra cup. So you're going to do a slip knot, and I like to leave a long tail to weave in later. Grab your hook, pull it on. You're gonna do a chain of 16. And then you're gonna skip your first stitch on your hook and go into the second. And you're going to crochet 14 single crochets. 2, here's 13 and 14. Okay, so we have one stitch left on our chain, and in this one we will be entering 3 single crochets because that's how you add your increase to both sides, because you want your bra cup to grow as you increase the rows. So here's a 1, 3. So now we are working back down the other side of our chain. We're not working into these single crochets, we're working into the chain on the other side. So turn your work going back down towards the bottom. You can go right into these chain stitches. So 1. You're going to be doing 14 back down the other way as well. 1. 12. 13. So we're putting our last single crochet just down here on the bottom. This is 14. So this is what you should look like after your chain in your first row of stitches. So when you reach the base, you will always chain 1 and turn your work. So we just did 14 single crochets, now we're doing 15. Okay, that was stitch 15. So we're back to the top stitch of our row. And remember, this one always gets 3 single crochets because this is how we increase the rows. 2 and 3. Now we're working 15 single crochets back down the other side. So let's do that now. 1, 14 and then 15 right there on the bottom, chain 1, turn your work. Now you'll be working 16 single crochets, and that pattern just increases every row. For an extra large, we will be going to 29 rows for our cup. So let's do that, and I will meet you back here when we are done. So here we are almost at the end of our 29th row. So let's go ahead and finish it off. And this is what it should look like. If I had a tape measure, I would measure it, but I don't. So now we're going to work along the bottom. We need to insert 23 single crochets along this bottom part. So you're going to chain 1, and you're just going to work as close to the bottom but still through some stitches across this side. And for an extra large, that's 23 stitches. So I just did 1, 2, 21, 22, and then 23, I just go in this very corner. Sometimes the stitches are tight, so you gotta wiggle your hook. There you go. Now that's 23 single crochets along the bottom of the cup. So now let me show you what this one looks like. So we did the single crochets. Now our first row is going to be this chaining space detail we have going on. So we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Turn your work. You're going to skip the first 1, 2 stitches, and you will double crochet into the third. Now this chain 3 represents the first double crochet and the chain up here. Then you have a double crochet. Now you're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, and double crochet. Chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet. And just keep going till you're back to the other side. Here's the last one, chain, and you are double crocheting into this corner 1, 2 right at the end. And there is your second row along the body. First we did a row of single crochets, then we did this second row with the chain spaces. Now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and you are going to put a double crochet into every stitch across. So you should have a total of 23 double crochets. And then people always ask me for the chain spaces. You can either crochet through it like this, and that's what it will look like. But the way I prefer to do it is I like to double crochet through the stitch. So actually putting your hook through the chain stitch and double crocheting. Again, it's all about personal preference. I just think it looks cleaner. It is a little bit more time consuming because sometimes the chain spaces are tight. But at the end of the day, it's really up to you. Sorry, it's hard to lay this thing flat as I crochet. Usually I'm like crocheting on my couch. So now we have to add 2 more double crochets to the end right here because we did a chain 3 and then double crocheted. So what I like to do is go through the first chain stitch right next to the last double crochet you did, and then you're just gonna put your hook into this side chain right here, And this is what it should look like now. So essentially you're just gonna keep repeating this until you reach the desired length you want. In the pattern, this is written as a crop top, so I'm only gonna do about 6 more rows. And the bottom of your top should end with this chain space design. So I'm gonna keep going and I'll meet you back when you reach your desired length. I'm doing a total of 8 rows. Okay, so I just reached the 8th row on the body piece. So now you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now we're going to be working up this way for the side panel. Here is the other piece. So this is what we're going to be doing now. We're starting this piece. So for each row that there is a double crochet, you'll put 2 double crochets into that row. So for like in this chain space, you'll do 2 double crochets, you'll do 2 here, and again, we will repeat the pattern. So here's our first double crochet. 1, 2 for that bottom row. For the second row, I just put 2 more double crochets, and you will just continue this pattern. Okay, so I'm finishing that one. So I have 14 double crochets so far. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 rows. So 14 double crochets is correct. Now don't forget that single row, the row of single crochets we did. So that will be 15. And now you're just going to crochet up as high as you would like. The higher you go, the more coverage like you'll have on like your side boob and your back. So for mine, what I do for an extra large, I go up 27. So we've already done 15. So we'll need 12 more. So if you can tell, like when we did our first row of that chain, when we did 16, you can kind of tell it's even, like the top of that chain and your side panel, it's about the same length. And I feel like that's a pretty good measurement if you want full coverage. If you don't want this much coverage, don't do this much, but make sure you do it in multiples of 2 plus 1. So like I stopped at 27, the multiple of 2 would be 26, plus 1 is 27. So just like on our body piece, we're going to chain 3, skip 2 stitches, and then double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, turn your work, skip the first 2, and double crochet into the third. This is the same pattern we did on the stomach or body portion. Oh, can't be missing the stitches. Okay, and those are our first 2 rows. Again, we will be repeating this pattern. For an extra large, you'll need to go 14 rows. These are the first 2. So you'll end on a row just like on this bottom piece, you'll end with the chain spaces. So whatever size you need to make the correlating row numbers. I'm making 14 rows, so here we go. Okay, so I finished my 14 rows. Oh, I got my nails done this morning. Let's just take a moment. I did my 14 rows, and now we're going to do a border. And it's not really a border, but you're gonna go around the entire thing with a single crochet, because here is the finished one. Because do you see how clean these stitches look right here with the like new color added? It's because I did a border of single crochets around it first, because you have to like go into the chain spaces and into a double crochet. This is just an extra step for extra clean stitches. I'm trying to give y'all a nice close look. So that is what we are going for. Something else really important I want to add to this is when I did my border for this one, I first started crocheting along the bottom. So for the other side, when I start doing the borders, I'm going to crochet along this side panel. It's just so that when you lay it and put it on you, that all your stitches are facing the correct direction. If you did both of them along the bottom, then this front stitching right here would be facing the opposite way. So just trust me, do one along the bottom and one along the side. So now we're gonna start our border. I finished my last row. You're gonna chain one, flip your work, and we're gonna start working single crochets in this direction. You're gonna put a single crochet in every double crochet space, as well as through the chain space. So these are just all single crochets all the way to the corner. Okay, so we are reaching this chain space right here. So I just did my single crochet on top of this double crochet. So remember there's one chain space, so do another single crochet. And now we're at a corner. So for corners, you're gonna do one single crochet. You're going to chain, and then you're adding another single crochet in that same space, and that starts you working in this direction of your top. So now you've added one single crochet, and for every row you'll be placing two single crochet. So there's 14 rows, so there should be 28 single crochets along this top part. So I just did one right here. And you want to go through the stitches, but stay as close to the top as you can. I don't know if y'all can see that. My yarn is getting tangled, so just give me one moment. Okay. So let's just keep going with your single crochets. I have 2, 4. So I just did 28 single crochets along this top part. So now we're gonna start working in the direction of the cup. So I did my last single crochet right here. So now we're going into this first stitch on the cup. And we're just going to continue single crocheting till we reach the top. Okay, so now I know these next 3 stitches are my increase stitches from the previous row. So you'll single crochet into the first one. And then this is our very top stitch of the row. So we're gonna do our increase just like we would in the cup. So do 3 single crochets. And if you want to keep track of where your strap is gonna go, my suggestion would to just get a contrasting color. So here's just the yellow I was working with on the other side. Also, you can just use a stitch marker, but I don't have one on hand, so this is what I do instead. So not the first stitch, but the second stitch, and then just pull that baby through. There we go. You can tie it. Usually I just leave it and it will stay, no problem. So now we're just going to continue single crocheting around our top. And that yarn will just be there in place for the next row, just making it easier to identify where our strap is going to go. Because for the last row, there's no increase in that top stitch, but that's where we'll be chaining for the strap. Okay, this is the last crochet of the last single crochet of the cup. So remember we had the row of single crochets that we did at the bottom of our cup. So there's the one, and now we are going to put, oh, I skipped it actually. See, you gotta be careful. It's actually right there. And now the next two stitches represent the stitches for this row. One. And sometimes if you can't put your hook in through a stitch, you can just put it through the whole entire hole. That's why I like doing it with the same color, because you can't tell as much as if you were to have the yellow and you put it through the entire space. That's also part of the reason I do one border in the one color, just so for the next row the stitches will just look extra seamless and crisp. But again, totally optional. If you don't have that kind of time, you just try to make a top quick, go through the entire space. Okay, so now we're back to our chain space right here. So remember, we're doing one single crochet, and for the second one we have to add our corner. So let's do a single crochet and a chain, and kind of turn your work so you're working back down the bottom. You're working in this direction now, and then you're adding another single crochet to that same space. So that's your first single crochet of this row. So now you're going into the chain space next, and into the top of the double crochet, chain space, double crochet, and just keep that pattern until you reach all the way back down here to this end. So I'm almost to the very end. I did one single crochet of this last row. So to finish off the corner of this stitch, remember we started in this direction with one single crochet. So put a single crochet into that same stitch, chain one, and then slip stitch back into that very first stitch of the round. And then you'll chain one and then fasten off. Leave a long tail to weave in the ends. And there you go. We are done with the orange yarn. Orange yarn is out of our mind. Now we are going to start the yellow border. So here's what this one looks like. So we're just doing the opposite. Now we're gonna add our yellow border and strap, and then we will be done. Well, almost done. Not all the way done, but we're getting there. So let me make sure, yeah. Okay. I am going to attach my yellow yarn in this corner because we're working on the same side we worked the last border in. So we're just attaching it at a different point. So in that chain space of this corner, you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. It's going to be really tight. There you go. And then chain one. I leave a super long tail to weave in ends. You can also tie a knot here. It's totally personal choice. So in that same stitch where you attach your yarn, do a single crochet. And now all you're doing is doing single crochets all the way around this entire border. Remember, when you get to your corner, every corner that you enter, this corner, and this corner, you do one single crochet, a chain, another single crochet, and then keep going. I will meet you when we get up to the strap right here where we put our stitch marker, and we will have a little chat about what to do next. So our last single crochet. Now we've reached our stitch marker. You can take it out. And in this stitch, you're going to do a slip stitch. And now you're going to begin chaining for your straps. So for an extra large for myself, I'm going to chain 200. It's totally up to you. Usually for an extra small through medium, I'll crochet 175. An extra large, I do 200, and then I go up by 25 every like 2 sizes. So again, you got to do what works for you. It's a lot of, like, if you're new to making wearables, a lot of the learning curve is just like trial and error. Everyone crochets a little bit differently. Everyone has a little bit different tension, so it's different for everyone. So with that being said, let's chain 200, and then I will meet you there and give you more instruction. So here is my chain of 200. So now what we're going to do, we're going to skip this first stitch on our hook. Into the second stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch. And you're just going to slip stitch until you get all the way back to your cup. This is all we're doing. I used to just do my straps with a chain, but over time I realized they're just not that durable, especially for larger chested women. It doesn't work. So this is all we're gonna do. Slip stitch all the way back down, and I will meet you when we get to our very last slip stitch and we're back at our cup. I'm putting my last slip stitch into my chain of my strap. So our strap is done. Now we're slip stitching back into that very top stitch again, right where you slip stitched to begin with. So slip stitch that in. Now in your next stitch, we're just gonna continue doing our single crochets. And this is as much as we have left. We're just gonna go back down to this bottom, and you're just doing single crochets all the way back down, and I'll meet you back here when you're done. Okay, we're doing our last single crochet stitch, but remember this is a corner, so we have to finish it off. You're doing 1 single crochet in that first stitch where you started. It's gonna be a little tight, but just make it work. Do your single crochet, chain 1, and we're slip stitching right here back into the first stitch of that round. So slip stitch, chain 1, and fasten off. Leave a long tail for weaving in your ends. So there we have it. There's one piece. Here's the other piece. This is so cute. This is so summery to me. I love this. So the only thing left to crochet is the chain that attaches these 2 pieces. So this is also another area of personal preference. You can just do a chain of yellow. You could just do a chain of orange. What I like to do is I like to do a little chain of both. You will need a bigger hook for this because using 2 yarns, it will be really hard for a 4.5 millimeter hook. So let me see what I got right here. I have no idea what this is. Oh, it's a 5.5. This will work. So what we're gonna do is do a slip stitch with just holding both the yarns at the same time. The tail doesn't really matter. We are gonna trim it later, but it doesn't need to be super long or anything. But you do need some kind of tail, so when you like are weaving it through the stitches on here, we'll get there. But for this, for extra large, I'm gonna chain 250 because we need at least 5 passes. We're gonna start it up here and it's going to zigzag back and forth, and you need enough to tie it closed on the bottom. So 250 for an extra large, probably 200 for the smaller sizes, 275 to 300 for the bigger sizes. So let's do this chain, and all you're doing is yarning over with both of them. You just have to be careful because sometimes one will slip out. I mean, this is all we're doing. Okay, 250. Okay, so we have both of our pieces. All the stitching is facing you. And here is our chain. I did it with both colors. And you're gonna need your hook. This is the same one I crocheted with. And to start, you're going to take your long chain and make sure the ends are lined up. And you're just gonna pull it so you can find where the middle is. So this is the middle. And you wanna make sure your shirts are as lined up as possible. And I always use this where our side panel ends up here as a guide. So I just run my fingers across. About right here is where I want to start putting this chain. So you can add stitch markers. It's totally up to you. I've done this a bajillion times. So all I do is put my hook through the yarn. I go below the row of the yellow, so into the orange yarn on this side. And then I just pull, pull, pull until this is where my middle was. So that's where I'm gonna pull until. And then we're just gonna do the same thing on the other side. So make sure your shirts are lined up. And I'm gonna put it right. There's no like super fancy like math or measuring or counting when you're starting this. I just kind of put it in there and see if it lines up, and if not, then I'll just undo it and try again. So I usually, if I can pull it tight and see that it's pretty symmetrical, then that looks good to me. So you're gonna take your yarn. I always put my hook through and pull it because we want our excess to go on top. So then I count how many stitches down. So this one was entered right here, 1, 2, 3. I usually go about 3 or 4 inches down from the last pass. So pull. Now I'll do the same thing on this side. So 1, 2, 3, and with 4. And the more like crosses that you make, like the more passes through your top, the more coverage you'll have like on this part of your body. So it's really up to you how many, you know, how many times you want this to crisscross. Yeah, so these seem to be lining up right. So and if it's your first time making this top, you might have to do this a few times to where it looks even to you, or until you're satisfied, but I wouldn't really overthink it. Once it's on your body, it's not as noticeable. I'll put this one on for y'all when we're all done so y'all can see what it looks like. And like keep pulling it out so you can see what it's looking like, because right now it's kind of bunched, but once it's on your body and you have it all pulled on and tied, it looks a little bit different. I went down too far on this one. It's really easy to make adjustments on here. You just have to pull it out and then like right here, we'll probably have more than 4. So I think I'm gonna do 1 right above this last row, and then my last one will go like down here off to the side a little bit. So when I tie it, it's really like down here on the bottom. You don't want to go into this corner. So I'm gonna go right here and then right here. Also keep in mind, if you were to have just done one color of the yarn, it would be much thinner than this one. I'm just kind of loosening it up because these are really tight and I want a little bit more space. Like this one up here is really loose, but these are all kind of pulled too tight for me. Okay, that's better. And let's do our last one. See, here's our corner stitch. I'm going kind of like off to the side of it. Oh, but I don't want to go into the yellow. I'm going to go right here into this orange, if it lets me. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this side. I'm going to go off to the side right here. Okay. That looks good to me. Now you're just gonna take these and tie a little bow. Gorgeous, gorgeous. So you see how big my bow is? If you want it shorter, obviously you could just make it shorter. I ended up doing, I think, a chain of 225, so I probably could have done 200 and I would have been fine. But the last thing I'm going to do is, I'm not going to cut it all the way close, but I'm going to do it like right here. I just keep these tails in because it's easier to weave it through the body piece. There you go. That's the front tie. We're done with that. So now we got to do the back tie. So take your work, flip it over, because that is essentially the front. And get your, my straps are all tangly. Okay. Fold in your side panels on each side. And now all we're doing is weaving these straps back and forth like we did with this tie to make our corset back. So just try to make sure they're not all like tangled. You know, sometimes they get twisted. There we go. So again, taking your crochet hook, I'm gonna go into this yellow part, this yellow corner right here. Honestly, if I don't like it, I'm just gonna take it out and there we go. Doing the same thing on this side, putting my hook where the orange and the yellow meet in that corner. The stitch should be tight, but it's fine. I'm just getting some of the spin out of it, putting my hook through the very first chain and pulling it through. Got a little stuck. Let's try again. Got it. Huzzah! Now just pull it through. That first space is honestly the hardest one because those corner stitches get really tight from when you enter the chain. So I'm just making sure my straps are about the same length. There we go. And now we're just following the crisscross design like we did on the other side. So usually I skip about 4 of these squares. These squares are what I count by. So here's the first 1, 2, 4. And then I'm just gonna line up my hook right there, again in the yellow part of the yarn. Put my hook through it and just pull it through. And that's the pattern on this side as well. 2, 4, put my hook through.